Now, is there anyone out there who wants to go fast? Anybody?
I want to go fast.
Hey, get him a suit. Hurry up, make it snappy. Let's go. Hustle up, hustle up.
So I'm sitting at a light the other day. I'm on my way home, and just stopped in traffic, whatever.
Just real quick before you get too far into this. Welcome to the Speeders Podcast. My
Oh
name's Chad.
yeah, Speeders. Hey. So anyway, I'm on my way home.
That's Matt Haye.
And Matt Haye, Chad Tomlinson.
Yep, that's me.
And I'm just sitting there in my car, random podcast going on, and I happen to look in my rearview mirror, and it was a girl on her phone. I'm not saying all girls do this, but the point is,
that seems normal to me.
I can't stand it when people are on their phones in their cars. It drives me nuts. So here's my question. If we didn't have automatic transmissions, would distracted driving even be a thing? Answer.
Yes.
Why?
Well, because I think it's a societal thing, honestly.
I got it.
I think it's a societal thing. I think it's indicative of the society.
But think of all the things that are going on while you're driving a manual transmission.
That's
I
correct.
should say the right transmission.
Well, if we're completely honest about that, the real separation between manual versus automatic is just that you have to do one thing that the automatically normally takes care of. It's definitely more engaging.
It's a lot of fun, that one thing.
I mean, we all know guys who still, with manual transmissions, find ways to text while driving.
Do you think it would be less of an issue?
That's a tough one. I think it would
you
probably
want to say
cut.
yes. You just don't want to make. You just don't want to make me right.
I just don't like any of your thoughts or opinions. I don't want to agree to any of them. But I think yes, it would probably cut down a little bit. I don't know if it would.
Which is another question I have. Another just popped into my head. Why are computers in cars getting bigger? Like I'm not talking about engine management computers. That makes sense. But I'm talking about
screens.
Screens.
Yeah.
All the crap in your car that would contribute to quote unquote distracted driving. Why do we need that stuff?
You know what it is? It's that Elon Musk. He's putting them big computer screens all up in them Teslas. And them Teslas are electronic powered. They're of the devil. And they're not fun to drive. And they're just lifeless, and they got computer screens in them. We need to go back to times where everything was steam powered.
Well, here I carry a computer in my pocket. I don't need a computer in my car as well.
Well, I don't know.
Because
you get to the point with those cars especially, and having a computer control everything is kind of advantageous. I think
it's where we are. It's where we're at.
Yeah,
I don't mind the computer controlling engine management and stuff like that. But
we are at the point where society demands it, my good friend.
I just don't need a computer screen in my car staring at me.
Yeah. I think a lot of people would disagree, which is unfortunate. I actually kind of agree with you in this. It depends on the car and the driving experience. If I am going on a road trip, if I'm driving cross country for some reason, I would want a car with nice amenities that felt comfy and then that had easy to navigate, dash and so that I could change channels or whatever I'm listening to with ease.
How many cars have you been in with computers that are easy to navigate?
None. I'm describing my ideal thing.
Saying.
Stop. Let me talk.
Okay.
So in describing my ideal, all right. You're too far away to slap, but I want to slap you so bad right now. You won't. So in describing my ideal cross-country tour, it would be something that, as I said, is comfortable, easy to sit for long periods of time in, and has easily navigable systems inside. So, whether that be climate control, whether that be radio station, whether that be,
How
connected devices like iPod and podcasts, Speeders Podcast, tune in.
How old are iPods?
It doesn't matter. The iPod is an idea at this point. It's a device that holds music.
Right.
We
So
all
the
know.
computer in
We
my
all
pocket.
know. We all know that I'm talking about Spotify. But the thing is that a lot of those systems are. It's a requisite to have that pocket device connected to the vehicle in question in order to pump sound out through the soundy makey devices.
Right.
But all that stuff, and also what I'm getting at is maybe it would be nice to watch YouTube if you're driving
But
down
that's
the road
the thing.
with your
That's
autopilot
the thing,
set
man.
up. It's this jet set idea where you can get the car and you can have the car basically drive itself, like all of commercial airlines these days, and you just set autopilot and you relax and you wind away 6 hours in a car journey.
I guess that's one of my problems.
That's what we're building toward. But
No, I know, but I so enjoy the experience of driving. Whether it's automatic or manual, I like every day I like to drive. I probably wouldn't say that at an hour or two in solid traffic.
yeah,
But, the general experience of driving, I really, really enjoy it. And it's time to kind of unplug and just not be in, computer space for a while.
yeah.
Even if I do have a podcast going, I'm still mostly focused on the task at hand, and
Yeah. So this is something on which we very much agree. I think that the tactile experience of driving is nothing short of catharsis to me. It helps to have a manual transmission car. All of my dailies have always been manual. I don't think that's ever going to change. If that's a thing in the future that I can keep from changing. But there's something pleasurable about, at the end of the day, just going through a ritual in the form of driving home using gears. I don't live very far away from work now, so that drive time is cut down a lot. But there's still it's a therapeutic process whereby you lose yourself in the operation of the vehicle, and the main goal is to get home. And you've done it before, so you can set it in background and you can think about life. You can think about other things. But therein, I mean, that's kind of distracting. You're not paying attention to what you're doing on the way home. So
what?
That's kind of distracting.
What?
So losing yourself in the menial task of driving. I have found that there, just like reading, similar to reading, it's a thing that you do with books and words. While you're driving, it's easy to zone out, and then you suddenly realize, oh, there's a whole spectrum of responsibilities that I have not been paying attention to. I don't remember the past 20 minutes of driving.
Yeah.
That happens a lot to me while I drive, because it's easy to focus on other things in your mind processes that a lot of times you fill up with music or TV or other stuff like that. And it's different for everybody, because those things are more accessible via these big screens that we're talking about. Elon Musk talking to you. It's more accessible in cars now, so there's less of that chance to really just let your mind wander. But
I guess too, like I've been very fortunate that I never got in a wreck on a motorcycle as I was commuting.
Yeah.
But I've been bumped, and I've had a bunch of close calls, and I would say 95, if not 99% of those people were not paying attention to what they were doing.
Yeah.
Meaning that they were doing something else other than driving. There was this one time, this lady, and I'm not picking on women, just happens to be another
It seems
woman.
like you're a misogynist, but go on.
She was shoveling potato chips into her face. And she bumped me as I was going by. This is in California. We can lane split, and I had, at the time, I had gloves and they had carbon knuckles.
Mm-hmm.
So I took my glove and I just pounded in her hood as I was passing by, and didn't even stop munching. I just kept shoveling that stuff in her face.
Oh,
I was so angry.
yeah. I feel like you just perjured yourself, but go on.
No, it was a long time ago. I'm sure statute of limitations has taken course.
Yeah, for sure.
But so it seems like distracted driving just keeps getting worse.
Yeah.
And people don't even. I think part of the problem is people really haven't experienced what can happen in a split second. I think up until that point, driving is just something you do to get to your friend's house or to work or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Until you've had that experience where you've gone up against, you see your light flashing before you or whatever. I guess it doesn't even mean it. Maybe that's the problem. Maybe that's what I'm experiencing is for the most part. It's just people that haven't had that experience yet. I don't know.
That's an interesting angle that I didn't think of for this conversation. So the difference between somebody on a motorcycle versus somebody in an average car. I think could be any car. That whenever you're riding on a motorcycle, correct me if I'm wrong, you probably have to ride like everybody wants to kill you. You need to ride paranoid.
I used to look in
right?
people's mirrors because you can tell very quickly who's paying attention, who's not.
Yeah.
So
And
that was always something I did.
That dictates like how you proceed about passing the person.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah. That's pretty considerable. I guess in other cars you don't really have to do that anywhere near as much, partially because you feel much safer cocooned in a big thing of metal and plastic, but I guess also because it's just another car driver.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
The stakes are a lot less low, or a lot less high, rather.
Right. It's just something I thought of.
Yeah. That's interesting.
Yeah.
Listener at home, would you like to chime in? Feel free to join the conversation. In our comments at us on any of our social medias. This is an interesting topic. Do you think that there would be less distracted driving and there would be consequently less accidents if all manual transmissions were all you could get, basically, if you could only get a manual transmission vehicle? I mean, yeah, kind of. And then everybody would get used to it and it would go back to normal.
Yeah, I mean, obviously there would be times where you would have time, traffic is one of them.
Yeah,
stoplights for,
Yeah, everybody's had the moment where they've been looking down doing something and they look up in the lighting screen. Yeah, that's happened to everybody. I think that's a universal thing.
Yeah.
But. So speaking of manual transmissions, let's go ahead and segue into a topic that we had last episode last month. This one was a pretty hot topic. I think it was probably the cornerstone of the episode for us. The C8. We have a bunch of new news.
We got a lot of good comments on that too. People were
a lot of good feedback from you guys.
Most people took my side.
So it's interesting to see that most people are wrong. We have some, I would say, disturbing new evidence. So the segue is that manual transmission versus automatic transmission. There's a high probability that this new Corvette is not going to be available with a manual transmission. I have a big problem with that. There's even further evidence to indicate that this car will not necessarily be a flat plane crank. There's some video that surfaced this past week for us that the C8R testing at Sebring, where it clearly sounds like a flat plane crank, high revving, naturally aspirated, but low displacement overhead cam V8. And I'm not sure how I feel about that. I would say disenfranchised is a little bit of the right word to use there.
Yeah.
I'm just not sure how I feel about it. The Corvette is obviously changing wildly. It's not just adding an overhead cam, and obviously all of this is conjecture. All of this could be false, even on behalf of the media that is covering this right now. There's no concrete evidence to suggest anything that we're saying is being true, though indication is pretty clear at this point. I am not sure how I feel about such a drastic change. Not only is it moving to mid-engine, but it's getting rid of the pushrod motor that makes the Corvette that has defined the debate between anybody who's made a Ford car fast in the past 10, 15 years, and anybody who's made, easier by the way, a Chevrolet car fast in the past 10 to 15 years.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know how I feel.
The sound of that pushrod V8 is
Yeah.
one of the things that sets that car apart. Like, you can listen to any
Yeah.
endurance race and you can pretty much just listen to it. You can pretty much pick out where the Corvette is at on track.
Yeah, because there was especially during the tenure of the C7R, there was no other car that sounded like it on track. Not even close.
Mm-hmm.
It had such a bassy, like really low, angry
bassy?
noise. That's why I said bassy. Like the fish.
Oh, right.
Yeah, because
So
it's flopping
bassy.
around at low. I don't, there's nothing to defend this. That was stupid of me. Yeah, so like a bassy, low, really
Yeah.
angry note that just completely unlike anything else on the field.
Mhm.
And you'd see that when you'd see interviews with people at Le Mans. People would be like, the Corvette obviously has the coolest sound because it just sounds like something out of out of a bygone era. It sounded like a Spitfire or something like some sort of big angry rotary engine plane, just really angry and loud.
I will say the images that we see. So if you go to YouTube, you type in Corvette C8R night test at Sebring, you'll be able to find this video if you haven't seen it already. But I would say like the car in race trim looks pretty cool.
Oh yeah, it's rad.
It doesn't look like a Corvette at
rad.
all.
Nope.
It looks a lot more like a Ferrari or something like that. But
yeah,
it looks cool. It actually sounds pretty cool.
Sounds rad too. But yeah, that's.
But
where,
the whole thing is like it's like we were saying before. It's not a Corvette.
Yeah.
And it's a bummer to call it that.
I keep coming around.
Even if they took the new engine, which new engines are going to be new all the time. If they put that in the front and just kept the overall architecture the same and maybe massaged it a little bit, that would be so much.
See, that for me is also, that's not acceptable. I just, that there's something special specifically about the LT, like the new LT and the Gen 3 and Gen 4 small blocks, the LSs. There's something really special about them where you took a technology that was, seen as deficient by some and obviously has its shortcomings. But I think the same exact thing can be said for any overhead cam motor. It's definitely a debate worth having because this is I'm sure, and this will spark another debate: overhead cam versus pushrod. I think overhead cam obviously has a lot of really good things about it. It's easily high revving. The
valve covers are cooler.
The valve covers are cooler, but therein, I mean, the valve covers are a lot larger. The heads are a lot bigger by necessity. They take up a lot more room in a 90-degree V8, for example. And if we're comparing them to a pushrod motor, I mean, especially with modern technology, there's not that big of a difference. I mean, especially not that, not a difference that can't be taken up by a little bit extra displacement on behalf of all the great GM engines that we've seen in the past 10, 15 years. So, I mean, again,
it kind of feels like too with the going to a crossplane if that does happen.
I don't think that's going to happen on the standard car.
It feels like
Ford
we're giving up on a technology. Like think of all the innovations that we've had in a pretty short amount of time with the LS.
Mm-hmm.
And it was pretty dark as far as performance goes.
Oh yeah.
And regulations and all that stuff, and we just had this monumental explosion of
So that started in the early 70s with the advent of smog technology. I think we touched about on that a little bit in the last episode. But with the advent of smog and CAFE regulations coming into spec for larger large manufacturers, we really saw a reduction in horsepower. Especially per dollar, especially of American vehicles, but anything sold in the United States domestic market. And that was really, really seen in the big V8s, in the cars that we made at that time that would make 400 plus horsepower from the factory. They, in a very short amount of time, went from that to making maybe 200 on some of the best models, like on a really nice cold day. Which is hard to say, and then it slowly started to get better as fuel injection started to get more advanced and more developed, and we started finding better ways, more efficient ways to curb our emissions while making power. I think the TPI was a move in the right direction in that sense, but even that was not strong. It was not a strong motor. It had its deficiencies. And then we saw the LT1, which was a huge step. The I guess it was the second generation LT, technically speaking, but the LT1 OptiSpark motor that came out in a bunch of different GM vehicles in the 90s. And I think that was a really big step in the right direction. That was technically a Gen 2 small block. And then the LS came out in the late 90s. And I think that was like the single biggest whoosh, like slap down on the table that any manufacturer had at the time. Because you look at what the SN95 Mustang had, and it was still a pushrod. It was still a wheezy pushrod motor. No, actually, at the time, I think they had already moved to the 4.6 mod.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So 98 when this stuff, or 97 if we want to talk about the Corvette, but 98 when the Camaro came out with the LS motor, at the time they had already moved to a mod motor in the Mustang.
Yep.
And I think that's not even a comparison. Guys can point to boost and how the mod motors, Ford mod motors love boost, but if the comparison needs to be made where
NA to
first you have to add a turbo in order for something to be competitive, regardless of how much you can push it. The same argument can be made for the GM motor. So yeah, NA to NA, not even a question. Like these cars were cracking off 12 nines from the factory way back then, which I think is nothing short of incredible. I mean, especially considering how far we've come in technology, but also not how far we've progressed in times. Because you look at what a modern Mustang can do and what a modern Camaro can do, and they're low 12s. But I mean, that's still incredible from the factory.
They weigh so much more.
That's probably the biggest problem.
At late generation Fox body or the SN
SN95.
SN95.
They're lightweights.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Easily
30, anywhere from 32 to 3,500 pounds, depending on the model.
Yeah. So there's that.
38 for convertibles and stuff like that. Who cares about convertibles? Fight me.
Yeah.
Yeah. So back to the Corvette though. I mean, I don't know. I still I feel sad about it, and I don't want to make up my mind about it before it comes out. I am a very positive person. I like to see the positive in every situation, and I know that this is very likely going to be an incredibly cool car, but
it'll be very capable. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah, I'm sure it'll be capable, but I don't know, like you said, it's not going to be the same as Corvette's previous. Yeah. It's not going to be the Corvette that we know
for sure.
Yeah, and who knows? Maybe they'll keep on a GT car. Maybe the C7 will live on.
Maybe there's someone listening to us right now that can make that decision.
Mm-hmm. Maybe there's someone listening to us right now that can make that decision for sure, or at the very least inform us. Get in touch. speederspodcast@gmail.com. Yeah. So, what do we want to talk about next? What's the next thing?
We got the Wrangler truck. That's kind of cool.
Yeah, that is pretty cool. So I guess it was the LA Auto Show where this new truck by Chrysler was debuted, and it's actually a pretty neat little truck. I like the way it looks. It's on that 4-door platform, that you can
4-door Wrangler. Yeah,
the 4-door Wrangler platform that you can buy Jeeps on, and it looks way cooler than that because it's a truck. It's obviously got a really short bed, but it's got some really cool stuff to it. It's got like a real aggressive approach angle at the front. These things are definitely made with enthusiasts in mind. As of this moment, I don't know whether or not they would come with manual. I would have to imagine that they would, considering the fact that you can get all of the other Jeeps of this class in manual. But one of the coolest things that I found was that they're going to come with a diesel. Which is really neat. It makes about 220 horsepower and about, I think, 400-something pound-feet of torque. Let me see if I can find that. But it's just a really cool little truck. I think they look aggressive.
They're going to sell a bunch of them.
I hope they do. I certainly hope they do, because it would set a really solid precedent.
Think of how many of the 4-door Wranglers that they sell.
Yeah, they sell a lot.
It's funny because when that 4-door Wrangler first came out, I was not a fan.
Really?
Because I was in the same vein as the Corvette.
Yeah, it's not a Jeep.
Well, the Wrangler is supposed to be a 2-door, short wheelbase car or truck. Yeah. And the 4-door was not that. It was gigantic. It's kind of like the old Mini versus new Mini kind of thing too. But it definitely grew on me. And I think I was a big fan of the Scrambler when they were around in the 80s, 70s and 80s. Yeah. Because Jeep didn't make very many of them. And it's very reminiscent of that. It just has a couple extra doors, basically. But I think they're cool, man. I think they're going to sell a lot of them.
Yeah, I really hope they do. Again, especially if they have a manual. I mean, that'll be really cool. I don't know why it matters to me, because I can't really afford anything that anybody is selling new.
I'm definitely priced out of those, that's for sure.
Yeah, but I think it's still cool that a company is willing to make a cool truck like this. I mean, we've seen a lot of revivals of some cool ideas in the past.
Yeah, we got the
past
Broncos
year,
coming back.
Broncos coming back. Apparently, the Blazer is coming back as well.
Is it Blazer?
Yeah, the Blazer has been teased.
That's cool.
That's reactionary to Ford bringing the Bronco back, obviously. But I think that could possibly be really cool. Especially if it came with a pushrod LT in it. That'd be rad. I'd like that a lot.
Well, I mean, honestly, I think the manufacturers need smaller truck-based vehicles.
I agree. I think especially trucks have gotten just way too big.
Yeah,
They're massive, and there will
expensive
always
too.
Well, yeah, I think that comes with the massiveness because you look at
They're
what.
really nice.
Yeah, yeah.
My dad
you
has
look at
one.
what they come with standard, and I mean it's a good deal for what you're getting, I think. But the reality is that if your base price is freaking $45,000, I mean you got.
Is there a base price for?
I don't. Well, I mean the Colorado, and even that is what's considered a small truck.
That's
but
a midsize, yeah.
but even to look at that and say that that's a small truck compared to the trucks of the early 2000s and the late 90s, especially, you had the Nissan hardbodies, the Rangers back then were really rad.
Yeah.
I think it's not even a comparison. The trucks have grown in size so much, and I think with that they've grown in price.
Yeah.
But
speaking of prices, the Baja 1000. So that happened.
Yep.
Did you know? So there was 40 trophy trucks that started that race.
Mm-hmm.
You know what a trophy truck is? It's like the Formula One of off-road cars.
Yeah, I think they call them Class 1s.
Yeah. So each one of these trucks costs between $250,000 to $500,000 to build. That's just to build the truck.
That's pretty ridiculous.
So
In a good
just
way.
those 40 cars at that price, you're looking at $10 to $20 billion starting that race. And I don't even know how many classes there are. There's motorcycles and
billion?
Billion.
Billion.
With a B.
Did
10
you do
to
that
20
math
billion.
right?
Yeah.
$10 to $20 billion. Billion dollars. Wow.
That's just to show up there with a truck. That's no gas. That's no
So
tires.
run over those numbers again. I just want to make sure.
Maybe I didn't. I don't know.
10 to $20 billion. I'm not saying you're wrong.
So it's 40.
Let's verify
40
it.
trucks.
So all right.
At the low end, you're looking at
40 trucks
$250,000.
At the low end times 250,000. 250,000.
Did I do it wrong?
Yeah, that's 9.6 million, which is still incredible. And I mean, you also have to factor in
billion sounded really way better.
Yeah, billion does sound way better. But I think you also I don't want to let you drop there, but you also have to factor in the cost to field these things.
Okay, so we're still in the billions.
We're not. Basically not.
Well, every one of those stupid trucks has a helicopter.
That's true. That's a lot of cost involved. I mean, the training time that goes into all of the associated personnel, whether it be crew or drivers.
It's an astronomical amount of money. That was my only point. Was it just the amount of money that shows up there for that race?
Yeah.
And
well, that's just the trucks too, and that's also
lucky,
the conservative
you would be
side.
lucky to get a couple $1,000s prize money.
Yeah, I think. Oh yeah, that's true. That brings up another topic. Basically, all racing is like that, isn't it? It's like you spend at least hundreds of thousands of dollars to compete, and the prizes are like $1,000.
Yeah,
$10,000. Oh, you won 100,000 for a whole championship! Yay! I mean, it doesn't even come close to breaking even. Which I guess. All these sanctioning bodies, they exist because, racing fees, obviously, but also because of advertising if they're lucky enough to be a mainstream sport. So, that's the reason NASCAR is a thing.
Yeah.
That's the reason,
Used to be a thing.
Drag racing used to be a thing.
It's more of a thing than NASCAR.
I don't think so. I don't think drag racing is more of a thing than NASCAR. And insofar as a spectator sport, I don't think it has the following that NASCAR has, even though that's another topic to be had. Declining viewership in NASCAR. NASCAR, what are you doing?
Yeah.
But, I
They got to change their model.
there's a lot of money involved in making racing happen. And taking a truck like that and outfitting it and making sure that you have the best program possible and showing up, you gotta say at least 40 million, like at least $1 million.
I wish it was billions, so that sounded way cooler.
Yeah. At least it's probably 100 million or more a season if we're talking about not just one race, but specifically around Baja. I would be totally fine with saying that all of those Class 1 trucks aggregate, like all of the money spent on just making it to that race and performing that race. I mean, $1 million doesn't seem like that little if you count the truck, if you count transportation, if you count all of that capital as well. I mean, it's a lot of money to show up to a race like that.
It's got to be more than $1 million because you got a hauler. Well, maybe not.
Yeah.
Well, so big.
Well, there's also the deal where
I don't know.
that not all those costs happen at once. But it's easy to say for one race. I mean, there's definitely $40 million worth of equipment, worth of personnel
It's just
there
crazy.
running that race every year.
That just blows me away.
Yeah, it's pretty incredible.
It was a pretty good race, though.
Yeah, I didn't get to follow it. Do you have any highlights?
No, people won.
Some people
Some
lost.
people
Most
lost.
people
Yeah,
lost.
a lot of dust in the air.
Yeah, very dusty out there in the desert.
Probably some beers being drank.
Probably some beers, maybe some tequila.
Lots of tequila.
Mexican food. It happens in Mexico,
Yeah.
so I mean that's
It does
a given. Maybe some camping,
So, yeah.
some pooping,
highlights.
some pooping
But
in the
that's not
wilderness,
talk about that.
pooping in the sand.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Anything else?
I don't know. What do you want to talk about next? Is there anything? What do we have?
What did you have any the electric car updates? You had an update on the.
Oh yeah. Well, we might have to cut this out because I haven't.
Okay.
I didn't get to make time to run through the Orbis deal, but there was a company that. Or excuse me.
That's what it was.
Yeah, Orbis is the company that we covered in the first one in the recap from SEMA. That made this really cool self-contained wheel that is a drive unit, an electric drive unit for front wheel or rear wheel drive applications, and specifically the Civic Type R was what they came out with, and there was a marketing group or a media group that came out with a pretty in-depth walkthrough of basically what it was and how it worked, and a lot more than I was able to see from just the coverage that we were able to get before we had to do our show. But I wanted to run through that, but I haven't had a chance to watch through that video and take religious notes. So that'll have to be something that we come back to. But yeah, that is a cool development. There's more to be seen, to be glimpsed from that company in Orbis. I'm still very excited about that. Electric cars in general, I mean, there's a lot to be excited about too. I mean,
Man,
you know Tesla has a race car, right?
No, I did not know
So
that.
Tesla has a GT car. I don't know that it's not competing in anything, but
Why not?
it's the P100D, the Model S
Yeah.
race car.
Yeah.
And I saw, I think it's Cars Love or Love Cars, a channel on YouTube has Tiff Needell on it, which is a really famous racing driver. And he's also happens to be a really good presenter. I got wrapped up in this video, this 13-minute video of him driving this car around a circuit, and it was just interesting. It looks really, really cool, and it's got the right attitude from a looks perspective and an aggression perspective. And then it gets out there, and obviously it looks very, very fast, but there's none of the sound accompanying it to make you feel.
None of the stuff that is invigorating comes with an electric car.
I think there's plenty of invigorating
No, but
stuff,
the sound and the smell and
the soul and the passion,
and the work that
it's
it
definitely
takes
lacking
to make. You got to, in a standard car, you got to shift gears, or a standard race car, generally speaking.
Yeah,
and that's part of the experience. That's part of the being a race car driver is to know how to do that.
Even if you have flappy paddles, I mean, you're still operating something and you're choosing your gear. But I
that's my problem with the electric car thing, man. It just freaks me out.
I don't know.
It makes me think that everything's going to turn into a Jetson, spaceship thing. I just have no because for a while they might even still be doing it. There was an electric motorcycle racing series, and
oh, that's cool. I didn't know about that.
Some people got involved, and eventually there was a lot of money being spent on 100% bespoke motorcycles just for this series.
Yeah,
and it's just all the things that make a motorcycle cool and make the experience of riding a motorcycle cool are completely gone. Other than you being part of the experience, moving your body around to get it to move. There's no sound. There's no shifting of gears. Like, it's just this thing that winds up and then winds back down when you brake, and it's just. There's nothing in it that makes me excited.
I'm still more open-minded about this.
I'm interested. I'm interested in the technology. It is very interesting in how they can pack, especially for a motorcycle, because it just can't be heavy, and it has to be it has to be balanced. So the engineering and the technology behind it is interesting to me, but I have no desire to even ride
Yeah, this is
It
another.
just does absolutely nothing for me.
This is another source of differing opinions for us because I feel like what made cars a thing in the first place is just the utilitarian advantage that they had over what was, in the past, like horse carts and crap like that. It was objectively a significantly more efficient way to go about
But an electric car,
regular tasks.
yeah, but it's just another way to be lazy, in my opinion. We're
I
coming
disagree
up
with
on
that.
self-driving cars. Like,
Yeah, coming up
There's-
on self-driving cars is another way to be lazy for me. That's where that conversation has some bite, but that's just a part of an electric car. If we're talking about taking the combustion engine out of a combustion engine vehicle and putting in an electric motor, I don't think that's a thing where you can say you're just being lazy. I think that there are a lot of merits to it, and I think regardless, especially if we get to a point where combustion engines get outlawed, God forbid we
how
get to
dare
that
you say
point.
that?
I think it's inevitably going to happen.
Yeah,
But electric cars are going to be the outlet for that.
If you can-
Electrical
if you
pun.
If you can just give me a gearbox, I would be into it.
Well, you could do that. There was a
But
guy
you
on
know-
Hoonigan that made a drift car out of an AE86, and he had a gearbox behind the electric motor vehicle. And that's, I guess, partially so he could choose his ratios and optimum tire shredding potential per gear. But yeah, I think there's something to be said for that.
And it
That
probably
would be
just
a way
makes
to
me
make it
sound really
interesting.
old that I'm
I don't
worried
think
about
so.
this. But
I think most car guys probably sound like this. I don't think that I am. I don't think that I am very typical in my opinions. I'm a positive person to a fault, but also there's like a lot of the stuff you were saying, a lot of the engineering and a lot of the backgrounds, maths and whatnot that go into making all of these things a possibility. Are intriguing to me. I so happen to also find the possibility of racing something like an electric car very interesting, because there's also, you want to talk about gears, eliminating gears. There's nothing more efficient than eliminating the need to shift a gear, because that's been the enemy of racing, the enemy of putting power down since racing was a thing. Because if you eliminate the need to put down or to change gears in order to put down power, you can make like a small S curve. You can make the straight in between each turn significantly faster, because you don't have to shift gears. You're not spending any time shifting gears. It's just more efficient.
It takes away from the driver being part of the equation.
Yeah. Well, I think it does. It undeniably does. But I think it's arguable whether that part of the equation is
Because look, just for example, look at
necessary.
Formula One, like those cars, the corner speed that they have now.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable.
You need to.
It looks like when you watch an in-car video, it looks like it's in fast forward.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous.
It does.
And you couldn't do that without traction control. You couldn't do that without a computer.
Yeah. Well, you
So
also couldn't do
you've
that without
basically-
working out
You've
for
basically muted the driver.
20 hours a week minimum.
Well, yeah.
All those guys have crazy training programs that they go through in
Which-
order to endure those cornering forces.
Yeah. It's just, I don't know.
You're
It's
also
just-
disenfranchised, aren't you?
Yeah, it's just taken away from the romantic side of being a race car driver.
Well,
It's-
that's a
it's
lot of it,
supposed to
isn't
be
it?
something that not everybody can do.
It's the romanticism of that select few who have really the skill and the capability to put it all together out of everyone in the field.
Yeah.
That is super romantic, and I think it's still gonna be that, but like
It's a
you said,
different
the
degree.
barrier to entry is gonna be more open. But the reality is as specialty markets like the car market, I think, or car enthusiast market undeniably is, as they continue to move forward, it's really easy to get more and more far away from what mainstream society is doing. And I think if there is a chance that we can get more people interested in racing and more people involved in racing because of electronic cars, because of electric cars, I think that's undeniably a good thing. I think, especially if we could have more...
Could we just?
Oh,
have
am I
them-
winning? Am I winning?
Can we just have them drive RC cars and then we can have our cars?
Well, no,
it's
that's
technically
you
electric
form,
racing.
You form other leagues at that point. I mean, you've got Formula E, which has been a thing for a while.
Have you
they've
ever
been
tried to
getting better.
watch one of those races
It's
though?
tough. It's tough. It's like
That's
watching
what I'm
golf.
saying.
It's just not. Well, it's also
You might as well turn the sound
You
off.
can just mute it. Yeah, you can
It's-
just mute it.
Ugh.
It's a little bit interesting, but they're in. I mean, there are a lot of interesting things that they do with tactics because early on in that program they had to use multiple cars per race, and now they've gotten to the part where I guess they're using one car, but for the most part it makes about 200 something horsepower, and then they've got a burst of 300 something horsepower that they can strategically use, based on what charge they have left in the chamber. I think that's kind of cool. That's stuff that the strategery behind it, and what team is going to use what at what point. It's kind of cool.
It's kind of cool, but also it's kind of lame. It's just like the push to pass button in IndyCar.
Yeah, but it's
Like
also
because you used to
it.
have to try and figure out how to pass somebody, and now you can just push a button to do it.
Yeah, well, that's where all the greatest videos of car racing has come from. A really even matched field and two really even matched drivers. They don't even necessarily have to be the best drivers out of the field, but if they're even matched and they're constantly trading positions, it is one of the most intriguing, engaging things to watch. It's really awesome, especially if those cars are also making noise.
Like some of the Goodwood Revival races that you see on YouTube's.
Yeah. Any of the the early IMSA races at Adelaide and Australia. There was the one that I showed you specifically of that Monza versus that turbo 911 Porsche.
Yeah.
At the Adelaide track. That just so incredible. He would the Monza, the V8 Monza had the V8 grunt and the gearing to just grind its way out of this big sweeper, and then the Porsche on the main straight, the front straight, would just have all of that power to put down in the straight. But it was a back and forth, and then eventually the Monza ran out of tires because it was 1975. So that stuff happened. But it's I think it's anything that you can do to make an intriguing, open situation whereby people can watch and people can participate. I think that's a positive thing. I think it's undeniably a positive thing. There are certainly some drawbacks that
we just said that we can't watch races. So why are people going to tune into it? If it's so boring that people that are into racing can't watch it, why would anybody tune into it?
So that's something we got to figure out. I think maybe having the really good
But then
drivers
you're
and even
getting
matched
into
cars
gimmicks
is
then.
another thing.
It's not just racing
what
for
is
racing's sake.
What is racing? Racing is a series of gimmicks. That's what it is. That's what it is. You got so much stuff.
Where's the romance, man?
Like in the Tudor Championship that that Corvette competes in with Le Mans and all those races. That stuff has balance of power, and it's got a bunch of different classes, but it's got a bunch of gimmicks to it. Just racing is a series of gimmicks, and it's about trying to make them as level of a playing field for those gimmicks as possible.
Or rules.
Yeah, well, rules are rules, but
yeah, they're not gimmicks.
But the style that everybody
classification.
has, the style that everybody has, and the approach that everybody has, and the way that they differ at tackling a project for a class, those are gimmicks. Those are things that attract people. I think the differences between the vehicles and and the types of races that are had, and all those are just they're methods of attaining viewership and retaining viewership. NASCAR has obviously lost the art of gimmickry. And
I hate calling it that. I don't want to call it that. I'm not calling it that.
You don't want gimmicks?
No, I'm not calling it that.
You're not calling it
I'm
that?
calling it racing.
It's probably not the right term. I actually don't
It's a
totally
horrible
agree
term.
with it.
How dare you?
But what are they at their base? They're like I said, they're ways where you're trying to figure out how to get an audience and retain an audience, kind of like what we're doing with the Speeder podcast, and then also grow a healthy
back to Formula One. They haven't really.
Driving.
There's no gimmicks. They're just it's the top echelon of motorsports.
That's the gimmick, though.
Yeah, but
it's the top. It's the absolute best. It's the best of everything. The most money is spent. The most money is spent at the most opulent lifestyles are displayed. The drivers. It's not just the race. It's not just the experience of racing. It's also the lifestyles the drivers live. It's also it goes back to that jet set feel type thing. These guys are like the top of everything, and I think you buy into that if you're a religious driver. Well, yeah, you don't, but a lot of the people who regularly watch F1 buy into that gimmick.
I hate that word.
I want to get away from that word because I still don't
It's
agree
a
with it.
dumb
but-
word. I can't believe you even said it.
All right, fine.
Actually,
Whatever.
I can because you're kind of dumb too.
Oh, you're dumb. I'll slap you in the face.
What else? What about that Bring a Trailer thing?
Oh yeah, let's talk about Bring a Trailer.
I love Bring a Trailer.
So Bring a Trailer for us, especially on work days. Sorry, Kyle, if you're listening.
Well, it's before work.
Well, yeah, that is
Machines
true.
are warming
That's true.
up,
Machines
so-
are warming up, and there's nothing else we can do. So you gotta go Bring a
I
Trailer.
mean, we swept the day before. So the
yeah,
floors are already clean.
Floors are already clean. Machines gotta warm up. It's not like there's anything. Else
Anyway,
for us
back
to
to
do.
Bring a Trailer.
Yeah, bringatrailer.com. It is a source
Super awesome.
of constant entertainment for us. In that we find a bunch of different cool projects that we can think about embarking on, and also you get to look at some of the interesting prices that things go for.
Well, I think to me, I like it because I feel like maybe it's not because I don't have any money to bid on any of this stuff, but maybe I feel like it's a more realistic look at auctions and auction prices than what you see on TV.
Yeah, I would agree with that. There's definitely less like sensationalist hype surrounding a bidding process. I think the same thing could be said for eBay though, but I guess eBay is the difference between eBay and something like Bring a Trailer is that Bring a Trailer is undeniably specifically for
very specific
selling vehicles. That's
Right.
it. So,
I like it for that. I like it because you see a lot of different things on there. Like we've seen a handful of Audi Quattros go across, which
yeah.
you never see those in the wild.
Mm-hmm.
You just don't.
And these are like the Quattros that were
What's the
homologation cars that they have to sell as part of the 500 per year.
Or the Launch Delta? We saw a couple of those a handful of those go across.
Yeah,
That was pretty.
Yeah, the Deltas
Which
are
you
rad.
never see those.
No, you don't. I've never seen one in person.
What's the one we wrote the Julia?
The Giulia. Yeah.
Yeah.
I really like Giulias. So, they're Alphas, right? They're
Yes.
totally Alphas.
Yeah.
Alfa Romeo Giulias. Possibly one of the prettiest cars of all time, I have to say.
It's got a great shape.
Like the proportions are wonderful. Think of it as an Italian 510, an Italian Datsun 510. It's just so good. It's just small. They came with like mini light looking wheels from the factory. They're just so neat. They're neat little cars, and they have a big presence in racing history. They they race circuits a lot, and they also competed in rally, which is really cool. They've got a bunch of really cool things going for them.
Well, and
they get sold a lot. Surprisingly,
another thing I like about that site, and by the way, this is not a sponsor. We just really, really like them.
If you want to reach out to us, please do so. speederspodcast@gmail.com.
You see cars that you don't normally see. Like the other day, there was an Austin. I think I'm saying this right. Aceca, Aceca. It was that and a coupe version.
Aceca.
Yeah. Oh my goodness.
Austin Aceca.
I mean.
Could you give me a second? I need to think about what I'm going to say next.
It's just, I had never seen one before, and just one of the most beautiful body styles. It was, close to like a vintage Ferrari, like a 250.
Mm-hmm. Let me look this up so I have a little bit of a reference. I can't even put a picture to.
It was the silver coupe.
Is it an Aston or an Austin? Like an Austin Healey? Austin.
Yeah.
Austin Aceca. ASIC? That's not right. Let's just go to images here. Nope, that's not right at all. The Association of Securities and Exchange Commission Alumni Incorporated.
ACECA.
AC. Oh, Aceca. Aceca.
I have no idea how to say it. I'm just a dumb machinist.
Oh wow!
Right?
Yeah, I remember this. That's
Yeah.
right. So this looks like
it's like a Ferrari 250
or like an Aston DB.
Yes, an early DB.
Yeah, early DB car. Very much of that James Bond era.
Very, very sexy.
Dude, these things are rad.
I had never seen one.
I had
before.
forgotten about that. So there were.
But you see cars like that all the time. Just what is that? And why haven't I known about this?
Yeah, there are a lot of those. So they weren't kit cars, were they?
I don't believe so.
No,
seems to be quite a bunch of them on these, according to the pictures.
They almost look like ACs too.
Right.
Like the AC before Shelby got his hands on them.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really cool.
There's also a guy that we we follow on that on Bring a Trailer. Don't know the dude's name, but he builds hot rod Porsches, which I'm very partial to. And he makes the best sales videos around. Like he just beats on these cars.
Undeniably.
Complete red line shifts, and it is a thing to behold.
It's totally cool. He has a route.
Yeah, he does.
He takes
so he's
every single time.
He's in Portland, and he has this, like Chad said, a route of streets that he takes, and some sweeping corners, and there's a S-turn there, here and there, and it's super cool. He really does a good job.
Yeah.
But I think it's Avant-Garde Collection is his
Avant-Garde Collection.
If you go to
Let's
YouTube,
see if we can find him.
He has a handful of videos on there, different cars that he's selling. I don't know if he's the builder. I don't know I don't know who this guy is, but he really does a good job selling these cars.
Yeah, Portland, Oregon, Avant-Garde Collection in Portland, Oregon. Oh wow, what a Fabio-looking man.
Well, we don't know if that's him or not.
I think it's safe to say that's him. He's got a lustrous head of hair blowing in the wind, blonde locks. Yeah, he's a very Austrian man.
Yeah, I love these cars.
These are my favorite cars.
These cars,
honestly.
they are the best to drive.
They are the best cars to drive. I mean, German engineering, so that's all there is to it. Inventory, my garage. Oh, yeah. Finance. That's good that they finance, because all of these are expensive.
They probably wouldn't finance me, but...
We will do a quick credit check. Just be right back.
Can you just leave here right now before we call
the cops? It's totally fine. Yeah. For some reason, whenever I do a German accent, I always tiptoe my way into Indian. It's a problem that I need to... There's a big problem that I have with the accents that I do.
We're not going to be quoting you today.
Oh, no, there's no... Hello.
We should really cut this out.
My name is Jason from Indiana. It is totally nice to meet you.
Yeah, we're not.
Yeah, we're not. Maybe cut that out. All inventory. So, yeah, he sells all sorts of Porsches.
There they are.
Oh, and all of them are good. I mean...
I am very partial to early 911s,
so
especially the hot rod versions.
Yeah,
that's one thing I wanted to talk about. I am so excited. I'm so happy that this is a thing. Like, people are finally hot rodding their Porsches.
That is cool.
I mean, talk about a good sounding engine.
Oh, yeah.
A naturally aspirated built Porsche
six.
Flat 6 is absolutely magical.
I don't think there's any other sound like it. I mean, it's another one of those cars. It's a higher pitch, so it's a little bit easier to get lost in the den of race cars.
Yeah.
At a racetrack. But I think it's one of those sounds that you hear, and if you hear it, in a good situation, it's undeniable that it is a rad Porsche Flat
It's not
6.
an overpowering sound like a pushrod V8 would be.
No, but it is definitely easily recognizable.
A song to it. Yeah.
Yeah,
definitely.
It's interesting. Some of my favorite sounds, not to completely segue or not to completely jump away, but some of my favorite sounds of all time for cars. I mean, obviously you got the normal V8 ones that come from me, being born in America and whatnot, and freedom and America freedom also, bald eagles. But there's something special about a couple of different V6s, or excuse me, 6 cylinders that V6s I actually don't like the sound of.
I'm not a V6 fan,
but
straight
flat
six?
sixes and straight sixes. Dude, there's the VR6 by VW, there's the 2JZ, there's the RB, in any of its forms that sounded absolutely fantastic. Yeah, the M and the S engines from BMW, the straight sixes out of BMW, and the obviously the flat 6 like we were talking about. There's something special about the straight layout and the flat layout when done right. I mean, even so, Subaru makes a EZ 46, or excuse me, EZ36, which has turned into a different engine, but it's still a flat 6, similar to a Porsche design, overhead cam, twin cam design, and they sound, when you juice them up a little bit, they sound just like Porsche engines. They're rad.
What cars can those be found in?
So they came in Liberties overseas and Legacies here. Liberty. And they so they came in Legacies here basically, and they also came in later model Foresters, I believe.
Okay.
So it's just a really cool 3.6 liter flat 6, and if you do a little bit of exhaust work to them, they just scream. They have that same Porsche style sound, which is really, really cool. But yeah, great sounding cars. And this guy Avant-Garde Collection has a really cool collection. Just for sale right now, just to name a few, he's got a 2011 911 GT3 RS. He's got an absolutely beautiful, like if you squint, it looks like a Singer 1975 Porsche 911 Turbo, which is freaking awesome. But he's also got pretty interesting Ford RS 200, which is rad. He's got a Shelby Cobra, which looks to be real. Hard to tell. I could click on it, but I don't want to get lost. And then he's got just a beautiful 911S race car, 70, and then a couple other cool things. He just sells a lot of cool stuff.
2002. Yeah. He's got a whole bunch of cool stuff. Mm-hmm. But his sales videos are top notch.
His sales videos are the best. And to get specifically to why they are, this has been a pretty good route we've taken. But specifically why is because he takes this route, and on this route, he actually gets on it.
Yeah.
So many people that post videos on Bring a Trailer, it's just like an idling video or video of the car doing like
they'll idle by, yeah.
Here's the car at 200 RPM in fifth gear. Yeah. Thanks, man.
See,
Appreciate
it runs perfectly.
Yeah,
never been raced.
Yep, never been raced. And then this guy,
you can trust me, man.
Yeah, well, you see this guy's videos and it's like,
yeah.
It's rad. I love how he just doesn't care about getting on it, and that's like when I'm looking at buying a car. I mean, not necessarily what I'm looking for, but if I see that, I mean, that's
respect.
Yeah, respect.
Yeah,
massive respect, bro. Super cool of you to do that, to beat on those cars in that way. Yeah, but he's a cool dude. Bring a Trailer's awesome. It's easy to get lost in possibilities on Bring a Trailer because it's such an eclectic collection of cars. And it's so easy to just daydream about the possibilities.
Yeah. Yep.
So speaking of possibilities, do you wanna talk about projects we want to do? I mean, I know we've talked a little bit about this, but I know you specifically had a truck project that you were thinking about.
Yeah. You mean my old truck project?
No, I mean the cool truck, the new truck project.
I don't want to give too much
away.
What if someone steals my idea?
We'll tease that. Yeah, it's really cool. Especially if we can make it happen, I want to make it happen. But we'll talk more about it.
It's a possible speeders build project.
Yeah, I think it could be a really cool thing launched
for us.
Maybe next year. Maybe next year. Maybe check out 2019 on this speeder.
But actually, since you brought up projects, I did want to kind of talk about my project that I have. So I've been working on a 29 Roadster pickup for a while. Well, I shouldn't say working. I've had this truck in my possession.
It's been around
for at least, it's probably been 8 or 9 years now. Well, yeah, something like that. Anyway, I've kind of lost interest.
Yeah, that happens.
Well, it does. But in this particular instance, I started out. I wanted to build a period style hot rod, which is kind of a thing right now. You know, you see the whole like hot rod, not rat rod stuff, which I totally agree with. I cannot stand the term rat rod. But so I've been thinking about this car. I actually wanted so the 40s to the early 60s is my time period. I absolutely love that time period.
So is this like the 1940s or like the 1840s?
Like 1940s, bro.
Oh, 1940s. That's sick.
It just seems to me as like the golden age of hot rodding, and I've always wanted to go back. I've always wanted to see it how it was. So I started building this car, and like I said, I kind of lost interest in it. I got a bunch of parts for it, and I'm thinking about it. And we had a conversation here at Detroit Speed once about show cars, and I am almost. I don't care for show cars.
I'm basically diametrically opposed to them.
It's the antithesis of what a car should be.
Yeah.
Something that you sit there and look at. It just doesn't make sense to me.
And just to clear, like, if you have a show car, that's cool. We appreciate that. But in order for us to get excited about a car, I think it has to have
a show car to me,
specific purpose beyond just showing it.
You're building a car so that somebody can tell you it's cool.
Yeah.
Or they like it.
And you're building a car based off of immediately what other people are going to think.
Right,
about.
And to me, I don't care for your opinion. My car is for me. So I'm thinking I'm thinking about this car, And I'm thinking, man, I'm building this car this is not my car.
Yeah.
I'm building it to someone else's aesthetic, you know?
Because think about what actually gets you excited to drive, right?
Yeah, because, well, I think that's why I've kind of lost interest in it, is I kind of realized the path I was going down. Because you see, there's a hot rod movement right now where people are dressing up like they're from the 40s and 50s. And,
Greasers.
It's just, I have zero interest in that. I respect those people because they are fully committed to being who they are.
It's scary commitment.
Yeah. Wearing old style clothes and shoes and
Which
hats.
Is cool.
It is very cool. I don't have any style.
I'm not into it, but it's cool.
I could never pull it off.
Yeah.
So I started thinking about that. I was like, man, I don't know. I think I'm kind of over it.
Yeah.
I still really, really love the aesthetic, and I still love the style. Like, traditional hot rods will always have a place in my heart.
Yeah.
I don't know that that's what I want to drive right now.
I'm kind of the same way to a lesser extent, but I think part of that desire may stem from just what we're surrounded by at work. I mean, we have a lot of really, really cool, really capable cars that surround us, and they're capable of going to shows and winning awards. But one of the things that really makes them more distinct than a lot of other cars that you see is that these things are track weapons. And I think especially for me, that's made me. It's tainted the way I look at every car, which is bad in some ways and good in others. But I don't look at a vehicle without thinking about in some way how I can race it or
track
how it's going, or how it's going to be around a track.
So that's another thing too. In my past, when I started riding dirt bikes, I didn't go to the desert.
Yeah,
my dad and I went to the track. When we went to street bikes, we rode on the street for a little bit, but then we found the track, and we're like, well, this is dumb. Why are we doing this? So we went to the track. Yeah. So I guess it's just a natural progression for me. Like, I want to go back to the track.
Want to go fast?
I want to go. Does anybody want to go fast? It's kind of where I'm at. I think I've made the decision to put it up for sale, and we'll see what happens.
Yeah. If any of you guys are interested in a 1929.
I don't want to pimp it out here. I just, it's just kind of something I've been thinking about for a while. And
email speederspodcast@gmail.com.
It just kind of dawned on me one day that I wasn't really building my car. I was building somebody else's car. Because those guys, if you think about it, if they had access to a CNC machine, or any of the tools that
not even a question,
they would have 100% jumped on board.
Yeah, I think
so many of these guys, they get on, everything's got to be cast and finned, and which is really cool. And for the time, that was what they had. That's what they had to work with. And it's a cool aesthetic. I still love it, but it's not. I don't know, man. I kind of lost my love for it in some ways,
Which is sad in some ways, but I think the potential for growing a new love.
I still look at that car and I'm like, man, that's such a freaking cool car.
Yeah, I think it's undeniably cool. You can. I've been over to Matt's house a couple times, and you can see it in the garage, and
it's got potential.
You can clearly, it's got potential. You can clearly see what it could be on the floor. But I just think that what it would be, if you put the time and effort into it that it needs, at the end of the day, would not be, I think, and I'm speaking for you in this, so feel free to correct me, but I think would be not what you actually want.
Well, no, I would finish it and probably sell it.
Yeah,
that's So I guess I'm just cutting my losses.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Like a bunch of different car guys. I think it's a common thing.
And
you get into a project and then you lose interest and then you sell it. I mean, it
is part of the disease.
Yeah, it is. Unfortunately, car projects are a lot like relationships in some ways.
No,
you could say. I think you could say that.
Yeah,
we don't have to go into it, but there's the case to be made for it. I think I'm totally correct about this.
You can not email Chad at speederspodcast@gmail.
Yeah, we don't have to go into it, but I think the parallel is definitely there. You can write us at speederspodcast@gmail.com to tell us what you think.
Yeah, it is a frustrating part of having a project. We do have a T-shirt planned for that specific thing, but
speaking of which, T-shirts, I know there are a grand total of 20 of you, but would any of you be interested in T-shirts? Hit us up at Gmail.
We're gonna make them anyway.
Gmail.com. Yeah, we're gonna make them eventually anyway because we have a lot of cool designs floating around in our heads. We'd like to share those with you guys, but as we get to that point, we'll release more information about that stuff. But
What about your project there, Chatterado?
So I've got a couple projects right now.
I like that nickname, Chatterado.
Chatterado. I'm fine with that. You can just don't call me late for dinner. But I've got a couple of projects going on right now. I mentioned that I do have a Firebird. I think I've got a Firebird. It's a 2000 Firebird, Formula hardtop. It's red. It's a 6-speed. When I was a kid, my dad had one like it. It was actually an LT car. It was a 1997 LT1 Formula, base model Formula, 6-speed. And he got it, and he did some modifications to it, and he took the family with him to track day at VRR. And I got to ride with him in a parade lap. And if there's any single moment that I had to pinpoint where I became a car guy, it was right there. I think I was maybe 6 or 7 at the time. And it was in the back seat of that Firebird Formula LT1 car, 6-speed, sounding like America, ripping down the front straights. But it was the feel of the motor, it was the feel of the corners, it was the vibration that got me hooked. And ever since then, I've been thinking about cars, once every 10 seconds.
So back to electric cars. Take all of that. Take all of that away.
Shut your stupid face.
Would you have been a car guy?
Yeah, probably. Maybe just about electric cars. But that moment bred in me like a need for it's like specifically a 4th gen. I've got a sentimental attachment to 4th gen F bodies, which is what that car is. So I, many years later, after driving and owning a Miata and selling that and racing here and there when I could, I decided to try and get one, and I found one. It was a hardtop. It was an LS1 car, which I did want,
which
because
by the way are hard to find.
They're getting harder and harder, and the price is getting more and more up there. I got mine for under $7,000, which I think is at this point impossible. Like you would have to know a dude who wanted to just give you a freaking
or somebody
deal.
who's completely clueless.
Yeah, or somebody who's clueless, or it was a V6 car that was being sold as an LS car for some reason. But yeah, they're getting harder and harder to find, especially in hardtop. That's probably the rarest thing about it, because pretty much all the LS cars came as T-tops. It was more than half of them came as T-tops, and about half of them were automatic, if I remember correctly. But it had to be a manual, had to be a hardtop, had to be a Formula, because I like the base model trim better than the Trans Am trim.
I agree.
Trans Am bros come at me. So it needed to be that, and we found the perfect one. And there was a funny story about buying it that I'll probably tell later. But yeah, found it, and since then it's just been progressive modifications and blowing it up on track and fixing it and going about it again. Right now, as it sits, it has a mildly built LS1 with some ported heads and a cam and an LS6 intake. And it hasn't been dynoed, but when it does get dynoed, I expect that it's probably going to be making in the neighborhood of 450 wheel, which is, about what you want for a mildly built LS1. Any less than that, and you shouldn't have built it. I think any more than that, and you're doing something good. It's got 315s all the way around on it, which is a lot of fun. I think that's probably one of the biggest deals about the build, because otherwise it would just be another red Solstice, Sunfire looking car. But yeah, it's got 315s on it, and it's got some big brakes in the front. I've got some Gen 1 CTSV front calipers and rotors. And it's just a fun car. It's just a fun put together. I would call it my GT car. I probably won't get that much more serious with that car. Which is why a friend and I went out and we found a 240SX that we're trying to make into a time attack car. We're trying to compete in global time attack with it, which is actually interesting. There's some new stuff from the time attack field. So global time attack and SCCA and Grid Life have all come together to make the North American time attack council. And so all these dudes are coming together to make unified rules on everything and to make unified what I'm hoping eventually will become a unified championship, and it's all about time trials. So SCCA should be hosting events for it. If you don't know what time attack is, it's basically like an autocross, but on a road course. Yeah. It's a timed event where you get maybe 3 hot laps at a time, and then a couple cool down laps, and you just put down the hottest lap that you can. You put down the fastest lap you can. It's a really cool sport, really cool event. I want to get into it for multiple reasons. What inspired me to want to do that is also another story, and what inspired me to want to use a 240SX is also part of that. But we have this 240SX that If not necessarily this one, because this one is a little bit rough. We do want to buy one and get into time attack with it to field a time attack car. That's a big dream of mine at this point. I think it's the racing that I am most interested in as an enthusiast.
Yeah.
I'm super excited about both of those things. Both of those projects continue. The 240 is slowly moving along. I actually have it here. The other car is home for now in Kentucky. Yeah, we live in North Carolina for reference. Those are my 2 projects. That's what I've got going on right now. What are your projects, Speeders Podcast listeners? Email us at speederspodcast@gmail.com.
We're also on Instagram.
We're also on Instagram. Add us, Speeders Podcast, on any of those platforms. We want to hear from you. Let us know what you disagree with us on, what you want to hear next. So, I think now's probably a good time to start winding down. We want to start. We're gonna have guests. We've already recorded some guest spots as of this moment right now, but we wanna start having guests on more frequently, and we want to ask them a series of questions. So we're gonna try some out on ourselves today. You guys can let us know whether or not you like them, what you want to hear from our guests. But I guess we can start. I'll ask you, Matt, and then you can ask me after each question.
Well, you just read them, and then we'll both answer each question.
Yeah, that's fine. We'll do that. So first question: what are you working on riding right now? I think we just answered that, which makes this segue perfect. We're basically professionals at this point. Next question: what is one vehicle from your past that you want back, and why?
Oh yeah. You gotta pick one.
Got to pick one. You can have a runner-up, but you can't talk about it. You just have to say the runner-up.
Okay. Well, the motor. Jeez, I don't even know how to. Well,
so is this going to be a motorcycle for you?
Yeah, probably.
I immediately can't relate.
Yeah. Well, there's a car that I would like to have back too. Actually, I'll talk about the car. I had an '86 VW Scirocco, and my dad and I found this
Good
thing.
Car.
Almost 0 miles on it. It belonged to this girl. She drove it to college and back. Lived with her parents, so she put almost 0 miles on this thing. Absolutely perfect condition. The paint was a little faded because it was Southern California. It sat outside all the time, and but other than that, I mean, it was nice. My sister hated it, and I didn't even care because it was so much fun to drive.
Yeah,
and everything was tight. The car was unbelievable.
Nice.
And so I'm leaving school one day. I was at college at the time.
Nice. So when was that? Like 1840 or
1890, something like that.
Oh, sick.
So I'm leaving school. I'm at a light, and all of a sudden I just get rear-ended. Almost skadoosh. This person hit me so hard it broke the mechanism on the seat, and I went straight back. That's how hard this person hit me.
Oh,
and
it was like
just
a recliner
it
rack.
folded the entire back of the car into the front seat. It made me so sad. And this person
was texting, obviously.
lighting a cigarette.
Oh no.
Yes.
That's even worse than texting somehow.
And so and that one, because I only had the car. I don't even think I had it at 8 months. I mean, it was really fast.
Yeah.
So it got taken pretty quickly, but I would like to have that one back.
Yeah.
It was just such a clean little car, and I never got to do anything to it. I drove it.
Yeah.
And then it got taken away. So
really quickly, just the name of the bike. What bike would it be? What motorcycle?
Well, it was a Honda 954 RR. It was
Those are just letters and numbers to me.
Yeah, it was a track bike that my dad and I built, and it was absolutely perfect.
Yeah.
You would think about something and it would do it. It was amazing.
That sounds solid. That's what you want out of any racing vehicle.
Yeah, it was perfect.
So vehicles that I want back from my past. Before I bought the Firebird, before we got the Firebird, I had a Miata that was passed down in the family, and I really enjoyed that car. I think you see Miata is lauded as like one of the best driver's cars of all time, and I think it's for an obvious reason because the thing handles like a go-kart. It's just rad. It's fun to drive. If you want to talk about driver experience and driver engagement, Miata is like almost at the top of the list for me, because even though it's a little bit slow, that almost gives you even more time to appreciate the fine mechanics of the steering and how well geared the car is, and how nice the gearbox is for the power that it has, and the suspension, just the wonderful feedback from the steering wheel. They're absolutely marvelous cars. I would really like one again. I probably will own one again in the future. Hopefully sooner rather than later. They're great. They're great cars. I know there are a lot of people who may disagree with that, and probably a lot of people who really agree with that pretty fervently. But yeah, that would be the one that I would want back if I had a choice.
Yeah.
All right. So next question: what sound do you love?
What sound or noise do you love?
Yeah.
So I mean, you could say car sounds and all that stuff, but my absolute favorite sounds are a racetrack waking up.
Ooh.
And it is by far one of my most favorite things ever.
Spiritual right there.
No, I mean, honestly, it really is, man. Because we used to go do track days, and you got to get there early to get a good garage or a good pit.
Mm-hmm.
So the sun's just coming up. You're having your cup of coffee, and you sign in. And it's cool because you're on the racer side rather than the spectator side, which is pretty awesome. And then you hear chit chat around the garage, and things are getting unloaded, and you're setting your leathers out and setting the bikes up and gassing and checking your tire pressure. So you hear tire pressure gauges and stuff like that.
Around you, engines are starting.
Yeah, then the first bike fires up, and it's just it's on at that point. But it is one of my favorite things. And then also we used to go when we'd go to the drag races in Pomona. We would go super early, and we'd usually go on like a Thursday or Friday, so there wouldn't be a lot of crowds. And the same thing, the PA the PA is going with the announcers, and they're talking about random stuff and whatever they're talking about, and you're just kind of walking through the pits, and you hear generators and then you've got the guy with his Vega up on stands, and he's warming up the rear end, so the tires are spinning, the engine's idling. It's just all those sounds and the smells, and that's my absolute favorite thing, man.
Yeah. That's a solid one. I don't know that I'm going to be able to beat that. I was going to say something lame like race brakes or something like that. But yeah, you painted a visceral picture right there.
Man, I live for those moments.
Yeah. I'm going to say it's more of a sensation that you associate with the sound. It's like that visceral feeling that you get when you're on the throttle fully in like second or third gear in any car that you've ever driven, any manual kind of sporty car that you've ever driven. It's the feeling. It's like you can feel it in your head, and you can hear the sound of the engine, and that all adds to it. It's that whatever car you're in that makes you excited to drive, makes you excited to do the next pull. It's that kind of feeling.
Yeah.
But specifically for me, every time I think about that, it's the Firebird. The Firebird has a really great exhaust on it, and it's just every time I'm near a wall or going through a tunnel, it's just that ripping, angry V8 sound that I think of, that I associate with that feeling. So next one, what sound or noise do you hate?
Fart can exhaust. It is absolutely the worst sound ever created.
Yeah.
I hate it.
I think there are... here's a good question. Would you rather the sound of a meaty fart can meaty fart can exhaust, or the sound of silence in an electric vehicle?
Would I rather?
Which one? Pick. You have to pick right now.
I'd probably take an electric vehicle, believe it or not.
Got them to convert.
No, not converting.
Yeah.
You just asked me either or, so I picked or.
I like fart cans. I don't like the typical noise that's associated with them, but
I like a tuned racing exhaust. But I don't like something that you bolt on to make your car sound like it has a tuned exhaust. No, you can have that.
There's only so
I would
much
rather
that
have
you can
stock.
do to a B18 with stock compression.
Next question.
Well, I haven't answered the question. Calm
sorry.
down.
I'm sorry.
Good Lord. So what sound do I hate? Man, rod knock, probably. I've had a lot of bad experiences on track. I've blown up the motor in the Firebird twice, and rod knock is just, it's the worst feeling. It's like worse than realizing that your parents have caught you doing something terrible. It's that same rushing feeling in your gut that's just not good at all.
It's just dollar
the
signs
bowling
flashing.
ball. Well,
Yeah.
that's definitely part of it. But even more than that, it's just whatever work you put into the car up into that point. It's basically all for nothing until you have enough money to make it run again. It's just rough. It's really rough.
See, that's mechanical sympathy. We actually have that.
A lot of people don't.
There's so many people that don't.
That's another topic for a future episode, though. I don't
Yeah.
want to get totally
No,
lost.
right.
But yeah, rod knock is my number one pick for noises that I most hate. Okay, so last question. What is the one thing that you haven't done at speed that you want to do? Hopefully throughout our lifetimes this will change as we set milestones. But
I don't know. I haven't even really thought about that one. I mean, there's racetracks I want to go to.
yeah, I've got one. Can I go?
Yeah, go ahead.
All right, so this one is very much one that I want to accomplish soon. It goes hand in hand with the 240SX project that I mentioned earlier. I want to experience an actual time attack event at speed. To this day, like the only time attack style events that I've participated in are SCCA solos, so autocrosses. And while that's very much the feeling, like a similar feeling, it's nothing like an actual time attack or a time trial. And I would like to do that. I think the only thing that I want to do that's grander than that is participate in an actual rally. I would like to do not even a rally cross. I want to participate in a stage rally. I really, really want to do that.
I would like to be a paid race car driver.
Paid race car driver? That's
Yeah.
a solid one. That's a really solid one.
And close second,
Bonneville?
that goes kind of along with the race car driver.
Race
thing.
car driver thing. Did
but
you know that?
have
Did you
ever
know that
seen-
Jimmy was a race car driver?
You mean Jerry?
I said that.
You said Jimmy.
No, we'll play it back later. But
You ever seen the tour of Italy that you can do in like a Ferrari or something like that?
no,
Yes.
That
so
sounds
you
great.
can there's vacations that you can buy where you show up and they hand you a keys to their Ferrari. I'm sure you have to sign your life
This
away.
sounds incredibly expensive.
Yes. In a perfect world, it would be something that I would like
Yeah.
to do.
Uh huh.
So you drive through the Italian countryside in an Italian sports car. That just sounds really, really cool.
Yeah.
But definitely being a paid race car driver, I think I can make that happen.
Yeah, you and literally everyone else involved in racing that isn't a paid race car driver. All right. Well, I think that was a perfect wind down. So we'd like to thank you very much for tuning in once again to this, our second episode of the Speeders podcast. We said it multiple times throughout the process, but if you have anything that you want to talk about, some topic that we touched on that you don't feel we touched on enough or we had wrong opinions on, absolutely tell us. We're available for interaction on all of our social medias, Facebook and Instagram under Speeders Podcast. Look for future episodes and past episodes if you're just hearing this one for the first time. On SoundCloud, Spotify, iTunes, and what's the other one?
The YouTubes?
The YouTubes. Yeah, we're on YouTubes.
Yeah.
Look us up on the YouTubes. So just once again, we'd like to thank you very much. This has been super duper awesome. I'd like to ask a question to you, the audience, that we'll talk about at the beginning of our next episode, and that is, what are good Christmas gifts for car guys? Christmas is coming up. This episode will air on the 14th of December, so that's obviously a good topic for us to talk about in the next episode. Tell us what you think are good Christmas gifts for car guys.
Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, everybody.
Merry Christmas, Happy New Year. Have an absolutely wonderful time. We'll see you later.
Yeah, as usual, this is Matt and Chad reminding you to unplug and live life at speed.
Thanks.